Hi, and welcome to the first leg of our Yorkshire road trip in an EV. I'll briefly cover the first leg where we drive from our home in Kent to York. This will be brief because who really wants to see traffic on the M25 and the A1M? It's a journey of 237 miles and a stop for a comfort break and a recharge outside Newark before we get to the Q Park in York. Then the bulk of the video will be our trip from York to Whitby. That's just 54 miles, but it's more scenic, with a couple of stops en route. Anyway, let's get started. Now our road trips start the night before by boosting the default charge limit to 100%. Then the next morning we're ready to hit the road. And it's going to be motorway for a while, but that gives me a chance to talk about route planning. The journey was planned on Google Maps, the default for the Polestar's navigation system, but the whole trip was also planned on ABRP, or a better route planner, an EV-specific solution. The reason I use ABRP is that it's much easier to see charge points en route, and it allows you to add waypoints as well as stopovers in the planning. If you're an EV owner and you're planning to take it on a road trip, you should really try it. The journey from home to York should be easy on a single charge, and there are chargers at the Q Park. But as I suspect, I may want a comfort break en route, so I plan a stopover at the Welcome Break Newark services on the A1, which has an array of apple green ultra chargers. Having made my way along the M2A2 onto the M25 through the Dartford Tunnel, and probably the worst of the normal traffic en route, after a bit more M25 it's the M11, A14, A1M to the A1, and here we'll find our first break at Newark. And here's me being honest, it didn't end well. I couldn't initiate a charge with the apple green units, so I had a plan B in my pocket. In under 5 miles there was an array of MFG ultra chargers, so let's see how that goes. Well, in the time it took for a comfort break and my introduction to Greg's, a sit down at that, we went from 44 to 82% in 25 minutes. That's easily enough to get us onto York and Whitby after that. An issue on the A1 has seen Google Maps take us across country, and it's all rather scenic, before we join the A1 and continue our journey. As we pass Pontefract, the A1 morphs into the A1M, but you'd be hard pushed to notice it, and we're then off onto the A64 in the last 16 miles or so until the centre of York. Our accommodation is without parking and in a restricted part of the city. We knew that, so we pre-booked the Q Park as mentioned. A 10-minute walk from the hotel, we arrive with a 56% state of charge, and our next leg is under 60 miles, so no need to charge here, but there was availability. With the car safely tucked up, we set off to explore York, and I'll pop that video up at the end. Now let's take the more scenic drive to Whitby with a couple of stops en route. But first we need to escape York, and this is around 9:30 on a Thursday morning, so not too arduous. And in no time rejoin the A64. It's now time for the usual. If you're enjoying this, then please give us a like. And if you enjoy my style of video, then why not subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can catch more of this trip and other trips we have planned. France, Scotland and Germany this year. Anyway, back to this trip, and I want the most scenic route we can find, so I'm heading off script because I can. I've decided the A64 isn't offering me much, and the next destination on the route is Pickering. So I thought we'd take a detour, and then we stumble across this. It's a great reason to be flexible in your plans. Anyway, we have stumbled across Kirkham Priory in the charming village of Kirkham on the banks of the River Derwent, and this place looks idyllic in a wonderfully rural part of Yorkshire. It seems so peaceful now, but as we discover the scale of it, 500 years ago, I think things may have been a little different. Actually, let's turn back the time to around 1120 to 1130, when the Priory was founded by Walter Lesbeck, a powerful Norman noble, who also built the nearby Rivaux Abbey. Unlike Revue, which was a Cistercian abbey, Kirkham Priory was Augustinian, an order of religious men who lived a monastic life but were also involved in serving the local community. The scale of this place is truly impressive, and the good news is it's free to visit with, as you saw, limited car parking outside. It's cared for and managed by English Heritage, and I'll pop a link in the description for that, along with any other pieces of useful information I come across. So what happened to this amazing estate? Well, if you know your British history, you probably already know. And it's Henry VIII again, and his desire to divorce Catherine of Aragon. The split with Rome and the Catholic Church, which led to the English Reformation and the dissolution of the monasteries. The priory was surrendered on the 8th of December 1539 and stripped of its wealth and left to fall into ruin. But Kirkham's story doesn't end there, and we jump forward to the darkest days of the 20th century and World War II. Kirkham Priory became the unlikely training ground for the Normandy D-Day landing troops of the British 11th Armoured Division, amongst others. They used the river to test the landing craft and the high walls of the Priory to test their ability to utilise scrambling nets. There was even a secret visit by wartime Prime Minister Winston Churchill and King George VI. And look at it now. Who knew? So after passing the car park minders, we're back on the road again. When planning a road trip, we have a few rules. Actually, let's say guidelines. If we only have one night at a destination, then we like to arrive by around 2 p.m. if we can. If we're there more than one night, then we aim to arrive at around 4 p.m. so we get a good look around. But of course there are different types of road trips. The ones where the destinations are the high point. Our 2010 trip of Canada is a good example, where we visit Toronto, Ottawa, Niagara, Montreal and Quebec City. Then the flip side is our Icelandic trip, where it's all about the journey. The destinations can just be a place to rest your head at night. Then you have a journey like this Yorkshire Road trip, where you have great destinations, but you also have the option for some wonderful landscape and some interesting places en route. Our next planned destination is Pickering, but that's not before we pass through Malton. We're only at Whitby one night, so the aim is to get there early, by 2 p.m. at the latest. We're making good time, and after a lovely breakfast in York, we really don't need to stop for lunch. We can pick up a snack in Pickering if we want, but something you can plan for is a nice country pub lunch. Just a word of warning. If you're travelling on a Sunday, you may need to consider your options, because a good Sunday roast in a pub can be very popular. You'll see that on the third and final leg of this road trip. Anyway, we're now closing in on Pickering, and before we arrive I wanted to let you know why we chose it. Pickering is one of those authentic Yorkshire towns, less touristy than some, however it makes a great base to explore from. It's just 26 miles from York and 21 from Whitby, and that coastline. Plus you're on the edge of the North York Moors National Park. So we're here now. Let's find a space and park up. Ambling through the centre of town is Pickering Beck. Beck being a northern Old English term for a stream. Coincidentally, also a German surname meaning brook or stream. There is an interesting legend as to how Pickering got its name, and the town's coat of arms is topped with a pike with a ring in its mouth. I'll share the rest of the story when we leave town. If you're looking for some of the town's heritage, there is Pickering Castle and English Heritage managed ruin a short walk from here. Also Pickering is one end of the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, with steam rides and experiences that can take you all the way to Whitby. There's a link in the description with more information, prices and any restrictions to the service. But we're interested in the Church of St Peter and St Paul and what's inside. Originally the site of an Anglo-Saxon church, it was rebuilt in around 1140 and remodelled over the following centuries. But what makes it intriguing is this. These are 15th century wall paintings. However, they were almost lost. whitewashed over during the English Reformation in the 16th century, only to be rediscovered in 1852 during restoration work. These biblical scenes are incredibly rare, telling many tales as you follow them around the church, and leave you thinking how many other pieces like this were lost forever. The size of the church surprises me a little, but I guess you have to remember this was a thriving market town. We're going to take a slow stroll back to the car, and it's been an interesting little stopover. Certainly worth it to see another side of Yorkshire life, and that's the point of a road trip, to stop and see places along the route. Now back in the car again and ready to hit the road. And there was an available charger here, had I needed a charge, but I didn't. That's the point I feel I need to make, because so many times I hear, oh, the infrastructure's not there yet. But it is, and it's improving every day. Anyway, let me tell you the legend of how Pickering got its name. Folklore tells us that Pickering began with a lost ring. King Periduus of York is said to have dropped it in a nearby river and blamed a young girl for its theft. But the truth surfaced in an unexpected way. The ring was found inside a pike, caught and brought to the king's table. Realising his mistake, the king sought out the girl and fell in love, and named the place Pickering, a name that over time became Pickering. Well, we all love a good story. Anyway, we have now entered the North York Moors National Park. However, I should point out that we're not taking the direct route to Whitby. That would have been north out of Pickering and entering the national park straight away, and passing the picture postcard perfect village of Gothland, which doubled as Aidensfield in the hit TV series Heartbeat. We're taking the route via Rosedale Abbey to satisfy our curiosity, as it was a destination on our 2003 road trip through Yorkshire and the last time we visited. A different time back then, but Rosedale Abbey doesn't look a lot different. And I have no idea why we chose this place. It must have been the beautiful scenery, and what a wonderfully peaceful base to discover the area. Now, a little bit about the drive from York to here. As you've seen, it's relatively quiet, but this is a weekday outside the school holidays. At weekends and during the holiday season, it's going to be busier. As I mentioned earlier, in the final leg of the trip, we'll be travelling on a Sunday, so you'll see what I mean. Anyway, now we've just crossed a cattle grid as we reach the high point of the moors. It's a little slower going here because you have sheep roaming the moors, and you'll often find them in the road. Plus, in some places the road narrows, so you have to be wary and give way when prudent. If you want to stop and take in the views, find a sensible location and make sure you're not blocking farmers' access or pull too far off the road because there are drainage ditches. In essence, just be sensible, but I know you will. I think it's now time for us to stop. Hopefully, after my little lecture, the parking is adequate. Anyway, the North York Moors have been designated a national park since 1952, and the views are stunning over the heather blooms in soft purples during the summer months. The unspoiled views seem to stretch as far as the eye can see. This seems to be a place of space and stillness, and it seemed fitting to stop and take it all in. But Whitby is calling for us, and it's time to get back on the road again. And if you're into your hiking, you'll be pleased to know the national park is crisscrossed with paths and bridleways, and we're now just 15 or so miles from Whitby. The route may be narrow and winding, but on a day like today it's joyous, but in the depths of winter, bleak and imposing. I know I'm giving you an abridged version of the region, but I hope it gives you a taste of what it's like. Please leave me a comment to let me know what you do like and what you don't. Be honest, but be polite. We're now joining the A171 and we'll begin the slow descent into Whitby. And we'll play the game of who can spot the sea first. Janice wins. So a little bit of EV data. I'll know we'll arrive at our accommodation with 36% charge from the 56 we started with. I know this because I'm looking at my spreadsheet. but the Polestar does a really good job of estimating your arrival state of charge. Then there's a data logging app, so I can export a whole bunch of useful information. That keeps me inner geek happy. The hotel should have EV charging, but if that turns out to be a problem, I have a plan B. And I'll have breakfast nearby the charger rather than at the hotel, so no time wasted. Anyway, time to check in and find the car parking and see if we can get charged. I found the chargers, but not unsurprisingly some were filled with combustion cars. But I can find one, plug in and charge whilst we look around Whitby. That brings this video to a close. I hope you like what we put together. Remember the like, stay safe, stay well and happy travels.